There's a guy called Gamzo. He is the cartoonist and he's editorial cartoonist for The Standard. Mm-hmm. Today, he has this funny one. Okay, look at it. Okay. So there's a caricature here of some person who, and then there's one side. Then, this person seems to be saying, we have to speak truth to power. And then there is now. We have the power. So why speak the truth? And he's holding a placard, ODM, UDA deal. Okay? Who does that guy look like?
Well,
Antoine, it's difficult to tell.
It's difficult to tell, eh?
Yes, it's very
we'll
difficult.
Give our guest to
tell
look
us
at
maybe
it. Our guest is Jared Okello. He is a member of Parliament for Nyando Constituency. What does that person look like, Jared?
Bas here, yes.
I'm a mourner. It's okay, you can say it. It's a safe space. It's a safe space.
Well, looks like a guy from ODM, going by his messaging, together with his inner attire, which is the T-shirt in the
orange,
in orange color. Yeah, but I'm trying to figure out who he is in the party. It's not coming out.
truth to power.
Why speak the truth?
when you have the power.
Welcome, Jared. It's good to have you here.
Thank you, Eric. Thanks, Okoh, and my constituent,
Yes.
whom I donated on loan to Muhoroni constituency. Mr. Muga. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Yeah, he's your constituent?
Yes, he's my subject.
Actually,
From Katolu.
yes.
Yeah.
Katolo is in
Nyando.
Nyando.
Nyando constituency.
Yeah. And then that's where the roots were. And then it spread to Tamu.
Muhoroni, yes.
Yeah. In Muhoroni. Which year?
I told him. It is referred to as a big flood of 1962. It was actually an inflow. This thing we've been experiencing where the lake sort of like spreads and water. Okay.
We are still experiencing it today.
Yes, we are.
The lake bulge.
Yes.
It started in Uganda.
Yes.
Certain sections. Now it is with us.
It is.
Some of my people are still holed up in evacuation camps today.
To date.
What?
For crying out loud.
Yes.
We had to sacrifice 6 schools.
What?
When people moved to higher grounds, and we had to plug in those children to different schools. So it is a real menace.
No, it is.
So when you say that the people are still in those evacuation camps, does that mean that the water has not receded?
Not yet.
Meaning their homes have joined the lake.
Right.
What?
Right. Well, people say the lake is reclaiming its former position.
Yes.
Historically, 62 was still far off from joining you on this world, but it is said that is the location where the lake used to be. And then it went deep inside, probably because of issues of siltation and stuff. And probably, again, certain times, drought also makes, the lake thinner because then the tributaries don't supply enough. So then it went that way. But now with what they call the global warming and certain times we receive a lot of flooding, the lake has also grown bigger, coming back to its former position. And that has really affected most of my people. As I said, 6 of my schools are marooned to date, and we had to evacuate people and their children and put them in different schools.
That means there's crowding in those other schools.
It is. Yeah, they are overstretching. The available resources, yes.
It also means that people have had their livelihoods disrupted for so many months.
Oh, completely.
Yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So what's the plan?
Well, the plan is, because it can't be a Kenyan solution, it has to be the East African solution. I remember, it didn't start this year. We have had it the last 3 years. And I remember the former president, Uhuru Kenyatta, came on the ground, witnessed what was there, and he made an undertaking to have it addressed between Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania, because all these countries are getting affected. We tried to do, desiltation of the lake that, to some extent, removed part of that, waterlogging deeper inside. And then it followed the diking along the shores. But certain times it brings down the dikes and it comes out. So it needs a long-term solution, besides the fact that we're also battling River Nyando, constantly busting its banks each time we have, a lot of rainfall. So Nyando should be a hardship zone. Unfortunately, it is not categorized as so.
This is a crazy thing. We'll get into the conversation before City gives you the proverb. But in those very many years, settlement schemes were established.
Right.
Where people moved and they were encouraged to relocate and go and set up their livelihoods elsewhere. That's how they ended up in Muhoroni.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Now you're talking about you talking to Uganda, Tanzania to do what? To take their lake. In the meantime, the people who are living in these camps, what are we telling them? The children who are sitting 80, 100 in a classroom and they are still going through it, what are we telling them? I mean,
it's a combo of problems, because one of the things that you will find when Mheshimiwa talks about global warming and what we have done to the earth we live in, we have cut down our forests. We have reduced the cover. That cover helped tremendously when it came to rainfall and what it did with the water. Now, if you've cleared huge swaths of it, the water then runs freely, and the siltation that it takes place is now multiplied. So, for the river to flood is extremely easy. And remember, it also carries that siltation to the lake. So, it's a problem that has been occurring. Now, this thing was cyclical in the sense that the cycle was longer. The problem we're having now, the cycles are getting closer and closer and closer. And then the event is lasting longer.
Right. Well, you mentioned about people relocated in the year 1962, 63.
64.
And 64. Not everybody moved, whereas the government had set aside chunks of land from Kibigori all the way to where you are in Tamu, but not everybody benefited. So they were also, emboldened by the fact that within a few months the water went back.
Yeah.
So even those who had moved actually to upper grounds came back to their lands. Yeah. Usually people don't like disassociating with their ancestry.
No.
For some strange reasons. Even when they move to the States and any other country, they say want to retain everything from home, including their names, their villages. That's why you have Kisumundogo in Nairobi, because we want to get that attachment with the places where we came from. So many people went back. Of course, again, from 1962 to 64, we did not experience that problem again.
No,
until just quite recently.
True.
Yeah.
So you can't also, again, falter them for having gone back. But it is now a problem
You're
that we
actually
have.
right. There are people who actually moved to Moroni and then moved back.
Yes. Oh, yes. Many.
Yes.
They thought it was just a passing. That thing has passed.
1964 until now, surely.
Yeah, but again, this was a livelihood. Living by the lake is a livelihood. So you take them to Moroni where there is no lake. They have left their trade, which is fishing, and they have been told the lake has since went back to its original place. They will come back and do their fishing.
Fishing,
so you
and
can't
then
fault.
You plant sugar canes, you wait for sugar cane to grow.
24 months.
Long stories. I get it.
Yeah.
Jared, karibu sana. City will give you the day's proverb. So once again, our guest is Jared Okello, the MP for Nyando. What Ndu is calling Nyando Bay.
I've decided. It sounds like it needs to be completed.
Nyando Bay.
Yeah.
Like the your name needs to be Okoh.
Yes.
Not Okoh.
Yeah, Okoh.
Yeah.
There are people who actually think it is.
Hey.
Yes.
It is Okoh. Eh?
Yes.
Welcome home.
The T is silent.
You know, in an earlier hour, I mentioned that the state of Libya, this is where the Proverbs come from. In an earlier time, ancient Libya, it was actually a term that some foreigners used to refer to the whole continent. But many people also don't know that Libya was, in the 5th and 6th century, a huge center for Christianity. The name Cyrene, people read it in the Bible and they don't understand. Cyrene was actually in Libya.
Yeah.
Oh, is that so?
Yes.
Irene.
Okay.
Yes. So when you have Simon of Cyrene, he was a Libyan. Yes.
Someone from Libya.
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The proverb: when the turban moves, there moves the territory.
When the turban moves, there moves the territory. What do you think this proverb is telling us?
When the turban moves, there moves the territory. The turban is the kitamba,
Kilemba.
the kilemba, and then when it moves, there moves the territory. Let me put it this way: the turban can be a symbol of marking a territory, like a territorial boundary. Because when it is on your head, definitely that is the territory where it covers. So as it moves, it covers even more and more regions of your head, and by extension, having more territory than it had before. So that is what I would understand by when the turban moves.
That is a very interesting interpretation.
Interpretations are different.
Telling you,
Isn't it?
the brain is a very interesting thing.
Very interesting indeed. Yes.
Interesting one. So back to that. Now you've had some time to think about, So this is just basically looking at what's happening. There are people who are thinking, okay, this person looks like Opondo Kaluma. I don't know what you think. Others are saying, it doesn't matter. Let's just say it doesn't matter. But it's speaking about something that at one time there are members of parliament from a certain political leaning who would say we would speak truth to power. And then due to certain events and incidences, now there's a broad-based government, there's a handshake, there's Your Excellency, we are here and we are telling you even where we come from and you know our people, we are working with you. And now there's a whole change of tune. We have the power. Why do we need to speak the truth? Right? Do you think it's actually a true reflection of our current political situation?
As a member of parliament, let me say jambo to our viewers together with our listeners across the globe, and say jambo again to the constituents of Nyando, those who gave me the mandate to serve. The government is patterned along 3 lines. And as they say, there are 3 branches of government. You have the executive, which is headed by the president and his cabinet. Then you have the legislature, where I belong. And again, now you have the judiciary, whose work is to interpret the laws. Now, when you have the legislature with very defined roles, number 1 is representing the people, and that is why Article 1 of the Constitution says Kenyans can do what they can directly or through their duly elected representatives. So representation becomes a key element. Number 2 is oversight, which is enshrined in Article 95 and 96 of our Constitution. And of course, again, number 3, alongside others, doing budgets for the country and stuff. So the oversight role is the mandate of Parliament, both the National Assembly and the Senate. And it does not delineate boundaries along political parties. So sometimes I become disturbed and quite perturbed when people say, now we are in government, there is no point doing oversight. Governments are rogue in nature. And that is why, in the interest of our laws, we came up with the Parliament to help oversight the executive. Checks and balances. The moment you withdraw the element of checks and balances, the whole nation suffers. And as I said, by nature, governments are rogue. You know, the element of wanton killings and abductions that we see happening in our country now, the element of corruption, which all these put together have to be apportioned somebody to punch holes where necessary. So the populace, having put that mandate on members of parliament, are waiting for us to ask those difficult questions. But then when people turn around to say, now we are part of that government, and therefore we cannot ask pertinent questions around all the issues that bedevil us, then we are losing the mark. And that brings me to this point. We have seen a pattern developing in this country where some of our experts have gone into government, and there are very few, by the way. We only have 5, you know.
Experts.
And that is the term that was coined by our party leader when he was releasing them to go to serve in that government. And experts they are, because we know what they are made of and their different trades. So when they joined government, I think as a parliament we never lost our responsibility to oversight and to represent our people. We just had in a very difficult situation in the month of June, which was climaxed on the 25th of June when the Gen Zs raided Parliament. I think the message was very clear that Parliament, you are letting us down. We gave you the mandate to serve. You know your role as a member of Parliament. You understand the Constitution, but you are running away from the Constitution and doing bidding for the executive. That was the message that the Gen Zs presented to us. Because, as you say, some people are now saying we don't want to speak to power anymore. Then who will? Who will? And that is why Article 37 of our Constitution, having recognized that there could be missing links and people who may not have the wherewithal to confront the government of the day, they brought in Article 37, which is demonstrations and picketing, so that the people have a latitude and a platform to directly exercise that sovereignty. Because you have failed them as their representatives, and here they are coming directly to speak to power. And we saw that happen in the month of June. So that is where we are. I still believe as members of parliament, we must play our cardinal role of oversighting government and putting it to check.
Do you think Parliament as an institution and all of you members got the message that was sent to you by the people of Kenya, the young people of Kenya in June?
I cannot speak for the entire Parliament. Personally, I did. And that is why I'm expressing myself as such.
No, from the entire Parliament is from your own observation. After you came back.
Right.
Since that moment, you came back, looking at how Parliament is still conducting its business, looking at how your colleagues are debating issues, are handling issues. Do you think the message landed?
I would say not much has changed. A few changes here and there can be noticed, but not to the degree that the electorate would expect. And that therefore becomes a matter of concern. Of course, again, after the Gen Z's protests, there came the division between the president and the former deputy, which also took quite a chunk of our time, debating that issue, bringing it as a motion before Parliament, passing it and moving it to the other house. So a lot has also happened that certain times would cloud the good things that would probably be happening within the house. But I can say that as Parliament, we can do much more to safeguard the people of Kenya, because Kenyans need safeguards. The moment a nation loses confidence in its electorate and in its government, the resultant consequences can be devastating. And therefore, as members of parliament, we need to do our part. The judiciary, I would say, has done a lot more good. Apart from certain times, my coalition divide, thinking that the Supreme Court is the missing link, is the weak link in dispensation of justice. You remember, just when the High Court and the Court of Appeal yesterday had, increasingly saw the Finance Act 2023 as having transgressed the processes, the Supreme Court comes out to say it was all good. Now, the Constitution gave Kenyans an opportunity to carry out an introspection on anything that they do. You cannot just come up with a piece of legislation without asking the views of the Kenyans. And then the court has also pronounced itself that the public participation, which is a key element in legislation, has to be both quantitative and qualitative. So you can't just have us in this house, the four of us, talking about something before Parliament, and you call that public participation. No. You must have the representation across the country. You remember, a court of law pronounced itself during the impeachment process of the former deputy president that it has to be cascaded down to the constituencies. We have 290 constituencies. Now that then therefore feeds into the quantitative aspect of public participation. And the High Court and the Court of Appeal, making their findings, came up with a verdict that the quantitative aspect of public participation as regards the Finance Act 2023 fell below par. And, they had evidence adduced before them. But it goes to the Supreme Court and they say, well, firstly, there hasn't been any law made by the National Assembly as regards public participation.
So there's no bar set.
Yet the same court says to set the bar, you have to go deep down to the constituency level. That is a bar in itself. And by the way, in areas where parliaments have failed to come up with pieces of legislation, the courts of law cannot run away from that responsibility. They have to put remedies in the interim until Parliament will come up with a piece of legislation over a matter. So they cannot all throw their hands in the air in surrender.
And say it,
oh, the court, no, it is Parliament. Parliament says, no, it is court. No, the court must pronounce itself.
So even as we look at the happenings, one also then must ask the question that where does the loyalty lie? For members of let's look at Parliament specifically, whereby it is clear that this representation has been lent to members of Parliament to represent us. You have been given the opportunity to do so. But where does the loyalty lie? Because we've seen so much, there's a lot of horse trading between this lending between the people and the executive. What's the truth in terms of this power? In
our former regime, before the new constitutional dispensation, which was enacted in the year 2010, every swearing-in ceremony from the president deep down to the member of county assembly, who were called councillors at the time, was to swear allegiance to the president. To the president. And then the nation comes later. Now, with the new constitution that we have, not new as such, it moved then from the president to the Republic of Kenya. That therefore means that any loyalty, if there were, should be to the Republic. And the Republic means the people that we represent. The president has a constituency. Members of Parliament do have constituencies. The governors deep down to the members of county assembly. So your loyalty should be tied to the people who then, by a wider view, become the Republic of Kenya.
Okay.
But I know that has been lost in the mix of things, because people tend not to disassociate political party leanings to the government of the day. Now, the government, as I said, is a separate animal. And then you have the other strata of government. So you have the National Assembly, you have the Senate, you have, women representatives and all that, who should always align their views, their policies, their leanings to the people that they represent. But because political parties make governments, people affiliated to those political parties think that they are government, and therefore they shouldn't have any other extraneous consideration that benefits the people.
Yeah, it always the government. But, let's be real. It's not to the party.
No, it's not.
It is to the individual. People do not align themselves with the party ODM. They align themselves with the person, Raila Odinga. It's not with the UDA or Kenya Kwanza. It's the person, William Ruto. It's the person, Uhuru Kenyatta. It's the person, Kalonzo Musyoka for Wiper.
Right.
That's it.
Right.
So how do we get ourselves from, because this is why I think, by observation, we see that even those in Kenya Kwanza, in the various parties in Kenya Kwanza, when they are in the house, they look up to William Ruto. They feel that they actually owe something to William. They are beholden to William Ruto. He contributed to them getting into that office. Uhuru Kenyatta went ahead and actually told them directly, some of you people,
I helped.
You
only
owe
here
your
because of
position
me.
to me.
Yeah.
And he's all and told them that.
Yeah.
You and now I can't even fathom that you'd stand up and say anything against me, right? I made you, right?
Yeah.
So this is the tricky situation that you find yourselves in.
Whereas
that you've got to kiss the ring.
Right, we have had our democracy, for many years, but we treat it as if it's still in a nascent stage. That is our, travesty. Yeah. You have political parties, go to the US, for example, the two dominant political parties, the Republican and the Democratic Party. They are just political parties. There is no one above it that you have to really, as you say, kiss his ring in order to, to win a political seat. So all the allegiance are to the major political party without an individual tied to it. Now, I don't know whether before they got to this stage that they were also to listen to certain political leaders in order for elections to ensue. Because truth be told, if you're coming from central Kenya, for example, today, you may want to align yourself with the former deputy president. If you are from Ukambani, you still want to be with Kalonzo Musyoka.
Why? And I think that's the question.
Yes.
Why does leadership and good governance have to be tied to an individual? I don't think it has to be, but I think that if we are coming from the place where that republic, whose allegiance you've actually sworn to, if that is front and center, really, of your intention, then perhaps there would be no need to have to look to the individual that you then have to be subservient, loyal, and place your allegiance to. Have we from the very beginning, is the compass not pointing in the right direction?
No, it's true, but it's difficult. You know why?
I'm sure it's difficult, but that's the thing. We've taken the easy route.
No, I'm actually agreeing with you here.
Okay, please.
Yes. It's just that I've begun the agreement in a lopsided manner.
Agree problem.
But I'm actually agreeing with you.
Yeah.
You see, we give the example of America, and we fail to understand that this was a newly formed nation. And everybody from everywhere came there.
Yeah.
There were some people like our relatives who went there by force. The natives who actually owned the country were decimated and taken to some
pushed
to just about the most unfathomable pieces of land you could have. So what they corralled around were ideas. Remember, they had a monarchy to fight.
Yes.
Okay? Now, when they had fought the monarchy, they then went and fought among themselves. That more or less galvanized the ideas around which now their politics functioned. Who supported this ideology and who supported the other. Over time, they even changed. Like many people don't know that Abraham Lincoln was actually a Republican.
Yeah.
You see? So what we know the Republicans to be now is what the Democrats were known to be at an earlier time, because most of the Democrats were from the South.
Yes, they were.
All right? Now, that's their evolution. We have had communities that have been the way they are as God made them. Okay? So we are accustomed to coalescing around our communities. This idea of mixing and matching is something that we are still learning to do. We are still learning to accept. We are still learning to move away from demonizing communities because we don't understand them. So our democracy in many ways reflects that, our heritage and our background. And we keep saying we need to shed it. Yes, we can actually. For many people, it's what our politics revolves around. So they are very unlikely to shed it.
Yeah, on the same, I wish we would reach a situation just as you envisage, that we will run away from personality and have politics based on issues. How I wish we would get there faster. I don't know how long it took the United States, but I think my constituent Muga has put it quite ably.
I don't
that
think they've
they
run
were
away
from different.
Yeah.
They were just from different backgrounds, and therefore it was very difficult to rally them along ethnic or regional lines, because these were all, foreigners, immigrants, so to speak. So in our situation, we have the political leaders. You talk about Uhuru Kenyatta still for Jubilee, Kalonzo Wiper, Raila Odinga now, Professor Peter Nyang' Nyong'o for ODM.
It's Raila.
William Ruto.
Raila has also been very clear. Nyong'o is just a placeholder.
Yes.
While I
right. Okay. While he concentrates on the other side. So, and this has also been buoyed by the electorate.
Yeah.
If the electorate would take a different tangent, then it would be much easier. But assuming Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga today becomes ODM and moves to another political outfit, Wiper for example, it will be a mass exodus of the electorate. So you are a leader standing by yourself that you want to identify with the ideals of ODM, you will be on your own. So this one, whereas the leaders need to give a direction, that direction many a times would be rejected by the electorate. And you do not serve on your own. You serve by the electorate. And by the way, Ukambani politics, where Kalonzo has now been their leader for years, it's because the people, the common people, align with his ideas.
They have endorsed him.
Yes.
They have endorsed him.
Yes.
To the effect that if you come out as a good leader and you want to represent your people and you present facts and very good policies, refined, they will listen to you. But at the end of the day, they will be asking, chama yake.
Anapigana na Kalonzo.
Yes. With all those good policies notwithstanding. So that is
the
where
issue
we
is the
are.
people.
It is the people.
Yeah, it comes back into that. Why are the people then like that? Why are we, the electorate, like that? Because like now, as you can see, Mount Kenya is struggling to see, all right, are we going back to Uhuru? Are we saying, sorry, Uhuru, we wronged you, now we are back? Even Gachagua has come to apologize. It's you, Uhuru, now give us the direction. Why? Why Uhuru, Mount Kenya? Why? Look at Ukambani. At the end of the 2002 election, it was clear, the message was clear that Kalonzo, don't mess with Kalonzo, right? Look at the number of MPs, the senators, the MCAs that his party garnered, and those ones were saying it's Kalonzo, right?
Right.
Kina Kivuda Kibwana and Mutua and others. Well, yeah.
Decimated.
But it's Kalonzo,
politically,
right?
yeah. Ngilu.
So why is it that people like that? Is it in our DNA?
No,
we identify with one king, one leader, one.
Right. We also have to understand where we are coming from. For example, where I come from, the successive regimes have alienated us. We have been abandoned and confined to oblivion by successive regimes. And Moi actually put it in plain, that siasa mbaya ni maisha mbaya. And siasa mbaya for him was punching holes on his governance.
You're not on my side.
Yes. So that was siasa mbaya. And, we are also not accustomed to keeping quiet when things go wrong. So then that feeds into our more problems. So if you have a people who are isolated, it is so easy to galvanize them around one leader so that they can fight for survival. Ukambani, we know, has always been sidelined. Water is still a problem, as basic as it is. You go to places like, Western Kenya, though there are many leaders in Western Kenya, but again, out of that, they have also not been so alienated like the rest of the country. So you look at areas where the successive governments have given them a wide berth, they tend to regroup, isolate themselves from what would call powers that be, and appoint a leader to speak on their behalf. So, and this is all around resources. And we have tried to escalate or cascade resources to the periphery as much as we can by way of devolution through the counties, the CDF, equalization fund. We have tried to do that. But you do all your math, 85% of resources or even more are still held by the national government.
Yep.
So that therefore creates more reasons for people to feel that they have continued to be alienated. You remember, just a few months ago, after the Gen Z's protest and reconstitution of cabinet, Luo community got 2 cabinet slots. A few days later, the president went to visit Luo Nyanza, and you could see, the
attitude had changed.
No, the ecstasy just around his welcoming. Just because they feel that at least for once, we have a representation in the 85% of resources by the national government.
May I interject?
Right.
So does that mean then that the euphoria was around the man, the president, or the euphoria was around now the
inclusion?
The inclusion.
Well, it was around a symbol of inclusion. Yes. Of course, 2 is paltry. But 2 out of 22, not so bad for a country with 8 regions, okay? What we used to call provinces. So you have 2, and it creates just some greater happiness and joy across Luo Nyanza. And by the way, that trip had not been pre-planned. It only coincided with appointments of those people. And you could see the joy percolating in the entire Luo region. So much of it, as I said, is about resources.
So then, now, let's actually just take that one example. This region, you come from this region, you've grown up in this region, you're a leader in this region, okay? If you look at the Kibaki 2, this region had leaders in government. This region had the core president of the Republic of Kenya in government. All right. Look at Uhuru 2. This leader, this region had handshake and leaders in government. Now we do have that. So you'd expect that the people who have actually suffered the brunt of marginalization would go into government and now champion that we don't have to have our leader coming to kiss a ring so that we can start enjoying this. We shall go to the ideals of the Constitution and ensure that the resources reach the people so that it doesn't matter whether you are from Tana River or from Kajiado or from Eldoret and you are the president. We don't have to come and bow to you. We shall get what we deserve. You'd expect that would come from leaders who've gone through such a harrowing experience.
Right. It is common knowledge that Baba is the author of devolution. He came up with the idea. He made sure it formed part of our constitution. By the way, originally we, as ODM, wanted 45% of resources to be taken to the counties, so that the national government, which should actually be doing policies, not implementation. Implementation should be by the county governments down there. 45%, so that if the 55% would be held here at the in Nairobi, then it makes a lot of sense that our regions will grow. But it was fought by those who have always been around government and understand what it means to have power and resources moving in tandem. So they fought it, and it only came down to 15%. And by the way, it is not just the 15% of the prevailing budget. They look at the 15% of the previous years.
Last audited.
Yeah, audited. And usually the Auditor General is
2 years behind.
Yeah, 2 years behind. So we are getting 15% of the year 2021.
Of Uhuru's cabinet.
Of Uhuru's government.
Budget.
Of
Yes.
history.
So you can imagine, with the increasing taxation regimes together with the mopped up collection by Kenya Revenue Authority, it is like 100% is still being held here, if the current data is anything to go by. 100%.
So back to my question.
Right.
So why is it that the author of devolution, who then ends up wielding power in these two administrations, would not use that opportunity, plus the leaders such as yourselves who understand the history and the background of it, to actually champion for better?
Actually,
That you'll end up having to kiss a ring.
right. Well, Baba has never kissed anyone's ring, including during Kibaki 1 and Kibaki 2. And that is what actually caused
That you'll end
the
up
fallout.
donating only for experts.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And those experts still don't
Right.
serve you.
Right. Right. So it is about Baba making sure that resources go to the counties. I think this is a message that he has constantly told the public. He has punched holes where necessary with the government to ensure that the resources do not just delay, because really they delay. Right now, if you talk to governors, they will tell you since July they haven't seen any money. And Baba has consistently talked about all these issues so that the government of the day can wake up to the reality that resources are needed. It's only Baba who has always talked about equity in distribution of national resources. He has.
Talking is one thing, Bwana.
Well, that is the much he can do.
No,
He's
no.
not.
It's not the much that he can do. He
What
can
else can he do apart from, letting?
Look. This region is donating expertise into government.
Right.
Right.
Oh, they are up 2 months old in office.
The leader is donating expertise and wisdom into Uhuru Kenyatta's government, into William Ruto's government.
He didn't do it for Uhuru Kenyatta.
He donated wisdom. Uhuru was calling him my brother. I confirm. What do you mean, Bwana?
There were no experts.
Yeah.
Anyhow.
So, in the end, why aren't we seeing more? Why do we have to have, a Luo MP leaving Parliament to go and join cabinet, and then we see, now at least we feel included? Why do the people have to feel included
Eric,
by
let
that?
me chime
Why?
in and help you with this. You've asked the questions, let me answer it. The reason why that exclusion that my MP here has spoken of bites even more for Luo Nyanza is because they had a taste of power and authority.
At independence.
They did. They had a huge slice. So when it was taken, they felt it more than anybody else could feel it, because when the disagreement between Jaramogi and Jomo Kenyatta came about, it's not just marginalization. People lost jobs. People were removed from positions they were in. If you're fortunate, you marked time. So you feel it sharper when you have already understood what it is.
And then it's taken from you.
It's taken. Now, there are areas of this country that never had it.
So now,
So they have absolutely no idea what it even feels like.
City, to my question in a minute. Would you expect that leaders such as Jared and others, now who are in these positions, should be able to be actually championing and saying it should not matter where you're from, that you shall receive services?
Reality is, manifested with the creation of the county governments. If indeed the government lived up to what is expected, funds would go to the county governments and the very thing you're asking for would be achieved. We'd be able to say, we have the resources, it's up to us to do what it is we need for our people. That hasn't happened yet.
Well, I agree with Eric. Why Parliament exists, both the Senate and the National Assembly, is to ensure that that oversight is carried out. When counties don't get their due share, it is the Senate to ask those pertinent questions, and then the resources should then move to the ground. So if resources have not been channeled to the ground and Senate is quiet, yet they represent their counties, which should have access to development, then that becomes a very pertinent question to ask.
Which goes back into what you were saying, that Parliament should be doing a lot more than it's doing.
Much more.
Jared Okello, thank you very much for joining us today. Come again soon, tafadhali.
Thank you.
Continue this conversation.
I will.
This is the Member of Parliament for Nyando, what Okoh called Nyando Constituency, Nyando Bay.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.